Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this in the world. I hope you guys are doing okay. And today I thought I would do a video basically breaking down why I think that there are so many frustrations and so much complaining around fighting games. Now I'm going to do this over maybe several videos over the next coming weeks, but in this video I really wanted to talk about rage quitting, and I've put the footage in the background for a reason. There's a reason why you can't see my face today, and I wanted you guys to pay attention to what is going on in the background. Now, as you guys know, I play a lot of different fighting games. The one that I've been playing the most recently is Bleach Rebirth of Souls. I just love this game and the way that it's all set up, but this game has one glaring issue, and it's the same issue that most fighting games in the modern age suffer from, and that is a serious rage quitting issue. So in this match footage that you're going to see, which is about 30 minutes long, you're going to see nothing but rage quits. Now, I'm not exaggerating when I say that I have probably been rage quitted on over 100 times at this point on this game. If we want to be generous, I've probably been rage quitted on maybe like 300 times across all of the fighting games I've been playing this year. That is being generous. I'm really not joking when I say that rage quitting is completely out of control. And the reason I want to talk about rage quitting today is that I feel like rage quitting really plays into the identity crisis that fighting games are having right now and have been having for a very, very long time. You see, with fighting games, they are one of the few genres where you have to deal with the consequences of your actions. You can't blame anyone else for anything going wrong in the match. It is entirely your fault. If you lose, it's because you weren't skilled enough, you didn't know the matchup well enough, you got knowledge checked, whatever it might be. With team fighting games, when people lose, they can fall back on their team. It doesn't feel as bad. You've got your friends on the mic. It's more of a digestible loss. But in fighting games, you don't have that. You are on your own. You are locked in a cage, essentially, with somebody that either you're going to batter or they are going to batter you. And I think that no matter what fighting game developers do in terms of dumbing the fighting games down and making them more accessible for new players to come in and play, no matter how many times they do that, there's always going to be sweat lords that pick up these games and find the cheapest ways to victory or the most optimal ways to victory, the main goal there being victory. I mean, there are a lot of new players that come into games and they're like, why are you playing like that? Be more offensive, stop running away from me. But they have a very different mentality to somebody that is trying to get the W. You see, in a fighting game, all that matters, much like any other game, is depleting your opponent's health bar and getting the victory. How you get there really is not something that I am too concerned about. It's can you do it, or am I going to do it before you can? But a lot of new players don't see it that way. They see it as you should play a certain way, otherwise you are not worth me finishing the match, essentially. And I think this mindset is kind of perpetuated, or is at least aided by the developers, because the developers give these new players an easy way out. Now, the reason that I'm showing you so many rage quits in this video is because instead of making people lock in, developers are basically trying to hold players' hands even more. It's bad enough that they dumb down these fighting games, and I can understand to an extent why they would do that. They want to bring in new people, but then they also make the systems really stupid as well. When somebody rage quits in Bleach Rebirth of Souls, which is a game that is trying to find a way to fix rage quitting as a problem, nothing happens. There's no penalty, there's no obstruction, there's no stopping the person from doing that. There's nothing that happens to these people for doing that. It's essentially time wasted. What they've tried to do to fix that is they've tried to make it so when you lose a match in Bleach Rebirth of Souls ranked now, you don't lose any points. So you would think to yourself that maybe that would fix the problem, because why would you rage quit if you're not going to lose anything? And yet, as you can see in these matches, which is these matches are basically being played on the latest patch where you don't lose any points for losing the match, people are still rage quitting. And again, I feel like fighting games are one of those genres where you just have to deal with the fact that you are locked in there with somebody that is going to do whatever it takes to get the W. Now, that's not a thing that is exclusive to fighting games, because if you even go and look at shooting games, you'll get people complaining on Call of Duty. For example, back in the day, I remember playing Call of Duty and they would call this gun the noob tube because it was so easy to get wins with it and it was so overpowered. People were picking it and it just felt very unfair. But coming from a fighting game background, I never really got bothered by this noob tube thing. It's annoying, obviously, to fight very powerful characters that have a lot of advantages, or players that play in a very cheap way, but my mentality has always been, well, you know, there's a life bar there, there's likely a way to overcome it. Now, the character that I'm using in this footage is called Abarai Renji. Renji is obviously from Bleach, and for a long time this character was considered one of the worst characters in the game. When the game initially came out, I picked him up as one of the early adopters of Renji and really showcased to people how powerful he was, but the developers nerfed him, and as you'll see in this footage, there's no other Renjis. I think there's people that maybe pick him up to mess around or try to have him as a pocket character to catch people out because he's not highly picked, but there's no people that play this character. He's essentially considered a low tier character. He's also considered very annoying to fight. So I stuck with this character and I found ways to overcome much more powerful characters, which was almost every character on the roster. Now Renji has received buffs from them and he's a much more viable character now, but the point stands is that you need to lock in when you're playing these games, and the developers have designed these games in a way where these players no longer have to lock in. It's bad enough that when you rage quit in this game, you receive no penalty, but you can also leave the set and receive no penalty. Now Mortal Kombat is one of the only modern fighting games that got this right, and I have to give Mortal Kombat 1 its praise in this. When you leave a set in Mortal Kombat, you are punished accordingly. They give you the opportunity to leave the set, but they basically tell you that if you leave that set, you will not get these points. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, if you leave the set, you lose the points that you would have lost if you had stayed and lost the match, because essentially you're forfeiting. And ranked to me is trying to replicate what it's like to be in a tournament setting and what it's like to basically go on a first to three war with somebody, because or best of three or best of five depending on what game you're playing. And when you leave in real life, you are essentially forfeiting, right? You're putting the controller down, you're like, I've had enough, I can't beat you. And in a tournament you get disqualified, but on ranked that doesn't happen. Now I don't know what the point is in having a ranked system if you're not going to distinguish the components of the ranked system from quick play. In quick play, if people leave, that's completely fine. There's no consequences, there's no time that is being wasted. You're just in there trying to get some practice. If people can't deal with a loss, it's not the biggest problem in the world. And I don't understand why the developers will not distinguish the two, because it makes the leaderboards fraudulent. If you have a leaderboard and it has these kinds of players on it, for example, the highest ranked Byakuya player on Rebirth of Souls is a serial rage quitter. He does not finish any match that he feels like he's going to lose. And bear in mind, Byakuya is a top tier character, so it's entirely your fault when you're losing. The game has made it so he can sit at the top of the leaderboard, he can one and done as much as he wants, he can rage quit and face no consequences, and these developers are doing everything but the most basic thing, which is taking points away from the person that rage quitted or the person that left the set and awarding them to the person that stayed. They are trying every possible method, and as you can see in Rebirth of Souls, it just doesn't work. Even if they don't have any points taken from them when they lose, they will still rage quit. They are trying to attract a market of people that don't really understand the consequences of what they're doing. Like I said, in team fighting games, you can fall back on your teammate and you can blame your teammate and you can even laugh it off in your group chats. But in these games, there's no one there playing with you other than your opponent, and your opponent is trying to take your head off. And so you see a lot of people online, myself included, constantly complaining about things, and you get a lot of new players saying, what is the problem here, blah blah blah. But I think that because fighting games are the oldest competitive genre in gaming, there is a massive split, whereas maybe with a game like Fortnite you wouldn't really get that. It's probably going to be a very young player base. I'm not saying adults don't play Fortnite before anyone gets offended, I'm just saying that it's obvious that there's a lot of kids that play that game. I'll give you guys a good example. I play a game called Uncharted 4. I'm sure you guys know the game, I'm sure you've seen it. It's got a very well-known story, but what people don't know is that it has one of the best online features that I've ever seen. So you can essentially jump into Uncharted 4 much like Gears of War, and you can play with friends, you can buddy up, you can do capture the flag, you can do ranked. But one thing Uncharted did was it made changes very early on, I believe back in the Uncharted 3 days, where if you left a game, if you rage quitted, you would be penalized. Now the game would tell you beforehand that you can leave, you have the option to leave. I don't think anyone is saying that you shouldn't be able to leave, but if you do leave, you will be penalized for it because you are impeding other people's play. You are wasting somebody else's time, you are hurting your team, and you're essentially affecting the way the game is supposed to be played. So you have the option to go, but if you go, then you're going to face the consequences. of your actions. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the case in fighting games, and I think the reason that the developers are doing that is because fighting games are such a niche, they're such a small genre that they're doing anything that they can to make people stick around. But this is only hurting these games. It is only making them look more and more silly as time has gone on. I think that if you implement proper consequences, it will incentivize the player base to just get better and lock in. It used to be like this. I remember back in Tekken 6, if you lost, you would get a loss on your record, you'd get a disconnect rate go up, and the other person would get a win. And you know, people seem pretty happy with that. You know, those are the consequences of your actions. The other thing that I also do want to touch on, and we've spoken about briefly here, is the one and dunning situation. Now, this has been spoken about to death, also by myself, and a lot of people leave comments on my videos saying, yo Mike, we don't owe you a game, we don't owe you anything. And to all these people that are saying that, I would say you are 100% correct. You are 1000% correct. You don't owe me a game. The reason you don't owe me the game is because these developers have made it so, but the argument is you should owe me a game. Now obviously, if the game is heavily lagging, then I think every fighting game should have a feature like Tekken 8 where if it's lagging heavily, you're able to just leave the game and you don't have to deal with it. It gives you the option. The game detects when there is so much lag. I think that's a really cool feature that Tekken 8 has, and if you implemented that feature into other fighting games where the game can detect when the lag is too much, then we could have an argument for, okay cool, you don't need to stay for the next game, or you can exit this match. But what happens is these games are just letting people walk away whenever they want. Now, one of the people that I had on screen, I don't know if he's on here right now, but he's one of the top ranked players in the world, and he's just a serial rage quitter as well. And so it begs the question, what's the point in having leaderboards? And I know what a lot of people will say. They'll say stuff like, oh, you know, who gives a shit, man, it's just ranked, blah blah blah. But I feel like if you have a mode in the game, that game's mode should act as intended. If I have a mode where it's like, oh, we're doing racing in this mode, and then the cars don't race, you're going to be like, well, why is it like that? Why have you got a racing mode in the game and it's not working as intended? I think if you have a rank system and you're trying to find out who the best player is, then maybe you should have it work as intended. And the people that don't care about ranked, I think the people in ranked are just sweat lords and they want nothing to do with that side. It doesn't even affect them because they're not playing ranked anyway. They're busy playing quick match, or they're busy playing offline with their friends, or they're playing the single player content if the game has that. I think the developers need to realize that although they're trying to bring in a new audience, and although they're trying to make multiple people happy, the people that are rage quitting, and I mean this with the utmost respect, but there's no easy way to say this, these are emotionally unstable people. These are the kinds of people that get rattled very quickly. If you get so annoyed that you can't finish a game because your opponent is better than you and they've bested you, and you rage quit, there's some emotional instability there. I've never played a game in this game in my entire life where someone's beaten me to the point where like I'm shutting my console down, I'm exiting the game. That just doesn't compute to me because it's a video game, and part of the fun in the fight is overcoming strong opponents. Now in Bleach Rebirth of Souls, I'm happy to say, I'm very proud to say that I think that I'm one of the best players in the world. There is like one or two people that I run into online that I have real difficulty fighting, and one of them is a player called Moose. Shout outs to Moose. He's one of the only people that really gives me a rough time. Like I don't know how to deal with his playstyle effectively yet, but we're getting there. We've beaten him a couple times, but we're getting there. But part of the fun in the fight is finding those powerful opponents and overcoming them. But you're never going to overcome a strong opponent if you keep on quitting. If you just keep on quitting over and over again, how are you ever going to get to the point where you're like, I overcame that? I remember there was a player in Street Fighter 4, a Zangief player, I don't remember what his name was, but it's back when championship mode used to exist. And this guy would just relentlessly beat me on the game. I did not know how to deal with him, and it was even more frustrating because I was using Bison, and in my head I was like, I feel like I should be winning this matchup. I don't know if it was a slam dunk for Bison. I know that doing scissor kick on Zangief is a bad idea, but outside of that I had the bionic kick, the heavy kick, and even his medium, and these were all very powerful buttons, and I couldn't beat him. And I remember I must have faced this guy 100 times, and I remember the day that I beat him, and the day that I beat him, after that he never beat me again. He never won a single match against me again. And guess what? I remember it got to a point where I'd figured him out so much after taking so many beatings against him, pause, that he started rage quitting on me. And I was like, really? That's where we are now. And so it's been happening for a long time. This rage quitting phenomenon is not a new thing, but what I'm saying to people is that why rage quit when you could overcome your opponent? There is no better feeling than overcoming your opponent and overcoming somebody that you previously couldn't beat, that you previously couldn't touch. And then they have to sit on the other side of the controller and be like, yo, really, this guy really got me. He really got me. And that also goes for one and dunning. There's a couple of matches in here, I don't know where I've put them in, but I get one and done by players who previously had beaten me, and I'd always give them the rematch because in my mind I was like, you earned that. Even if I don't like the way you did it, you earned that. I owe you a rematch. And I'll give them the rematch, and then it will come around to the time where I figured them out, you know, I've adapted. I don't just lose on these games, I sit back and go, okay, what could I have done better? And I overcome them. And then to get like nothing in return because of these developers, it's very irritating. So my question to the developers is, why do you have a leaderboard if the leaderboard does not reflect accurately who the best players are? I think, for example, in Bleach Rebirth of Souls, Tekken 8, Street Fighter 6, I think that these players should have the option to leave. They don't need to play me if they don't want to, but I also think that if it's going to be called ranked, there needs to be a bit of integrity. I think that the game should have some level of integrity, and it loses its integrity when you have people sitting at the top of these leaderboards who are just rage quitting, who are just leaving during the set, because essentially you could have somebody that has completed one match per set, let's say hypothetically, because he knows that going into a rematch with said player, he might lose it. Some players find it hard to adapt in very quick spaces of time or short spaces of time, and some players are able to overcome things very quickly. And you know, that's the difference between a good player and a great player a lot of the time. But you can have a leaderboard of somebody that left every set that was too difficult for them, but they're sitting at the top of the leaderboard. Now again, no one's winning prize money for this, you know, no one's going to EVO Grand Finals. It's just, I always struggle with the idea that the integrity of these games aren't there, or like when they're developing them, are they thinking to themselves, this mode is supposed to function a certain way? Or do they just think to themselves, oh, we'll just slap it into the game and you know, they're going to enjoy it because whatever. That is really my argument, that you should be making modes with the intention for them to function as stated. And that is really my plea to the developers. As you've seen in this video, the amount of rage quitting and even some one and dunning situations, it's too much. And in the pursuit of trying to get these new players into the game, you are alienating people that put time and effort into them. No matter what people say in the comment section, no matter what people might say in YouTube videos or what they might say on Twitter or Facebook, at the end of the day, people play video games. And yes, it's a first world problem, but they put a lot of time and effort into the games that they're playing. And it's kind of annoying when you've come home from work and you know, the wife and kids maybe are asleep and you're like, okay, cool, you know, I want to hit that goal, I want to get that PNG, I want to rank up, and you keep running into players who can't lock in, and now you have to deal with the consequences of them not locking in. Like, you are also the recipient of them not being able to play the game properly, so they rage quit on you or they one and done you. And again, I have to give massive praise to Mortal Kombat 1 in this regard, and this is a big deal for me, and it was one of the reasons why, even though I hated MK1 as a fighting game, I had to commend its online infrastructure. And I know a lot of people say, oh, you know, online doesn't matter, but obviously these people are just, you know, saying that. There's no proof to suggest that online doesn't matter. Now, whilst I don't have the numbers of which modes people are playing, you can look at where developers spend a lot of their time, where developers spend a lot of time updating. And one of the things that developers spend a lot of time updating is the online infrastructure, specifically ranked. I mean, in Bleach Rebirth of Souls, a game that I was told to death that this is for the Bleach fans, it's not for fighting game fans. This game has almost exclusively received updates to ranked and to balance changes, not to story mode updates, not to single player content. Now again, there's nothing wrong with single player content or story mode updates, but my point in saying that is that these modes clearly must be the most populated modes, otherwise why would developers spend money on updating them? What sense would that make? Surely you would do the things that make you money. I mean, look at Xenoverse, for example. Xenoverse is always adding single player content. I have to imagine the reason that Xenoverse is always adding single player content to the game many years on after it had come out is because those are the modes that are heavily populated. Those are the game modes that are being purchased by the consumers. That's where people are spending their time. Whereas with these games like Bleach Rebirth of Souls, for example, or or Tekken 8 or Street Fighter 6, I can almost guarantee you every single thing in my bank account, the most populated modes, are ranked. And so if you're going to spend a lot of time on these modes, I feel like you should enforce what they're supposed to be. And again, to those people that are saying, oh, no one plays these modes, I believe that you are wrong, and I believe that the developers' time and where they're spending their resources proves that. And so, like I said, if ranked is not something that you are particularly interested in, then these sort of conversations don't really affect you. This is more to advocate for getting better modes and better infrastructure into these fighting games, and to stop catering to players who don't want to deal with the consequences of their actions. As I said, these games can be very rough, because once you get into a match with somebody where their only goal is to win, and they might want to win in the cheesiest way possible, they might find the most effective way possible that you just don't know how to deal with. Yeah, it can be annoying, but I feel like these developers are not helping with the mindset behind it as well. I feel like these developers are incentivizing players to not lock in. Really, this video is just me basically just showcasing how much rage quitting is going on. I've showcased it in Tekken 8 and I showcased it in Street Fighter 6 some time ago, but I really wanted to showcase it in the current game I'm playing because it is just across the board. Now, I did have a bunch of footage for Demon Slayer. I don't know where I've put it. My computer is a complete mess. So this video is just Rebirth of Souls. But again, this video footage was only taken in the past, week or two? And this isn't even all of the rage quitters that I encountered. This is just a small number because I was like, there's only so long I can yap on a video about rage quitters. So I kind of made it around half an hour long, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to yap for that long. I hope that has made the point crystal clear to everybody. But I will say that I never really understand the people that are like very annoyed when people talk about this, because those tend to be the people, I've found at least, that they don't play ranked, they don't care about ranked. And I've never really understood getting so annoyed about something that you don't play. And I also don't really understand how people don't understand why this is so annoying for others, why people get so frustrated when these sort of things happen. You can see in these matches that I'm obviously trying to rank up. I'm currently sitting on like 7th on the leaderboard. I'm trying to get to like 5th. I can't get to the top spot because the guy in 1st is a plugger and he's just plugged his way to the top, and obviously like I'm not going to do that. And I think the next person below it is like the legitimate #1 rank. I think it's Widowblade, a Byakuya player or a Ichibei player, but I'm not going to be able to get there. I just wanted to get Renji into the top 10 because nobody plays this character. But it's been a struggle because one of the other hurdles of fighting games is that when you play a character that is commonly believed to be weak, for example, Renji for a long time in this game was considered to be weak, and then you come across somebody that absolutely whoops you, you have to sit there and think to yourself, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? Wasn't this character supposed to be a weak character? Why did I just get stomped? And again, because of the mentality that is now bred in fighting games, because of these developers, they don't want to deal with that. They call you a scrub, they call you weak, they call you, all these names, when really the fact of the matter is that they just haven't locked in. They're just not good enough. And so my plea to the developers is, if you're going to put ranked modes in games, please make it so that the ranked mode actually makes sense, the leaderboards actually make sense. If I see a guy in 1st place on the leaderboard, I want to know that this guy completed majority of his sets and didn't rage quit. If I see somebody in the top 10 with a really impressive record, I want to know that this person actually completed their matches and wasn't cherry picking. If I see somebody with a lot of points in a fighting game, I want to know that this person earned these points and that they didn't just go about it by, leaving certain matches here, finishing certain matches over here. Now, I'm extremely petty. When someone rage quits on me on Bleach Rebirth of Souls, I immediately press the record button on the PlayStation, go to the most recent gameplay. I save the last minute of the match, which is where all these matches came from, and I upload it straight to my YouTube channel in a privated video to reference later on. So everybody that has ever rage quitted on me on this game, you are on my YouTube channel. I just haven't published the videos yet, but I have spoken to people that have worked at Tam Software. I think at least one of them was a developer who used to work there, and I've passed all of this on. Now, I don't know if anything is going to come of it. I don't know if anything is ever going to change with this game or just fighting games in general, but I'm always going to do my part to try and make these environments a more fun place to play for the people that are actually putting in the work. Yes, I know it's a first world problem, and yes, I know that it's not the end of the world if they don't do it. I get all of that, but I think if you're going to sell a game to people, that the game should be in the best possible state. Now, I know a lot of people on Twitter don't like that about me, and they find me to be like a serial complainer. I've always got something negative to say, but I don't feel like I'm being negative. I feel like I am trying to do what's best for these games, and whilst it might fall on deaf ears a lot of the time, I'm always going to try and put my best foot forward, especially for those that spend their time running tournaments, trying to get these games on the map, building a player base, because having modes in this game or any of these fighting games where it just allows players to quit and it allows players to walk away without consequences, you will essentially put off a lot of your player base. A lot of people might just say, do you know what, I'm done with this, I'm not playing this anymore, this is so frustrating. And I almost got there with Bleach. Thank God that I actually love the battle system in this game, because I was so close when this game came out to just being like, I can't deal with this, man. These anime players, they don't know how to lock in. They don't know what locking in is. Every day I was dealing with a rage quit, and I remember I picked up Bankai Ichigo, who at the time was considered a top tier character, and a lot of people were like, oh, you're only winning because you're playing a top tier character. And then I played Kaien and I got to number 1 on the leaderboard, and people were rage quitting on me because nobody really uses Kaien either. So there was a lot of confusion on how to beat me, so they didn't want to deal with it. And now I'm using Renji, a character that you will not see online unless you run into me. Nobody plays this character at all, like literally nobody, and I get rage quit on, I get one and done constantly. It's just it's a very frustrating experience. So that is my like 30-minute yap session about rage quitting and why it is one of the reasons that people get so frustrated with fighting games. And I feel like developers need to understand that these are not team fighting games, and these players are always going to get annoyed. They were always going to get annoyed, but isn't it better to just annoy the players that were always going to get annoyed instead of annoying your entire player base? Because there's nothing more annoying than being like, I've got a bit of time to rank up. Maybe you've got a bet with a friend, like I have a lot of the time. I have a bet with a friend and they're like, hey, you can't do this, and I'm like, yes I can, I'll get there. But it becomes impossible when people are just leaving matches or rage quitting. And even in a game where you set it so that if you lose, you don't lose any points, people are still rage quitting. The only solution is to cater to the people that deserve their wins validated. It is not to cater to these people that can't lock in. That is the last thing that we should be doing, in my opinion. That is the absolute last thing that we should be doing. We should make sure that we are looking after the players who are putting the time in, putting the effort in, and basically showcasing your game, you know, running tournaments for it, putting it on YouTube, doing matches, especially in games that are so niche, so small that any little helps. So that is my rant for the day. It's a bit of a yap session, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about rage quitting and how annoying it can be. And as you can see in the match footage, when I'm playing Bleach Rebirth of Souls, if I play 10 matches, the likelihood is that at least 3 of them will rage quit, and that is being extremely generous. Most of the time it is much higher than that. And you know, sometimes people ask me for proof and I haven't had it there, and I haven't had it readily available, or I've lost footage because I'm always uploading and doing things on YouTube, so I don't keep track. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep track of everybody that rage quits me. I might just do a gigantic rage quitting compilation so that maybe one day developers look at it and be like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this to our player base? Why don't we just do what shooting games do and penalize people? As far as I'm aware, Marvel Rivals does a thing where it penalizes people. I think Overwatch penalizes people. I know Uncharted did. I think Gears of War did. So why would us guys over here on the fighting game side of things not penalize people? It doesn't really make any sense to me. And I hope it's something that changes as we go into the new year. There'll be new fighting games that are coming out. Virtua Fighter 6, for example. That is going to be a game where once again you're going to have to take your licks and just deal with it. I think Virtua Fighter 6 is probably going to be a difficult game to play. I don't think it'll be as difficult as some of the fighting games that have come before it, but I think it'll be difficult. And again, you're going to be locked in there with a sweat lord, and you're just going to have to deal with them. So if Sega or RGG are listening, please implement a ranked mode that actually has some integrity. Anyways guys, that is my rant for the day. I hope you've all had a blessed day, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care and peace.